Hey folks, well, here we are at week 15, the final video for our Bring Back the Salmon Classroom Hatchery program for 2021. I hope that you've learned a bit about what an Atlantic salmon is, what it looks like, how it lives its life, and how important this species has been as part of the natural community and to people. We have learned how Atlantic salmon arrived in the Lake Ontario watershed, how the damming of rivers, deforestation, pollution, and overfishing by European settlers led to the loss of this important species from Lake Ontario, and how the Lake Ontario Atlantic Salmon Restoration Program is bringing them back through stocking, habitat restoration, research and monitoring, and education and outreach. We have learned about the challenges that the future of this species faces, including water quality issues, invasive species, and climate change. We have also learned how many of the same challenges Lake Ontario Atlantic salmon have faced from human activities have driven and are driving countless other species and other populations of Atlantic salmon into extinction. Over the past 15 weeks, we have watched Atlantic salmon eggs produced at Harwood Fish Culture Station develop from the eyed egg stage, hatch into alevin, and then use up their yolk sacs to become fry. After release into the stream, the ones that survive predation will develop into parr before swimming downriver as smolts, to enter the lake to grow into adults, before swimming back up their natal stream, the stream they hatched in, or in our fish's case, the stream that they were released in, to spawn and start the life cycle over again. Today is a big day for our fish. They are graduating from their tanks to be released into their natural environments. Before we get to collecting the fish, I'd like to take the time for one last gratitude moment and say thanks to all of the presenters who participated during this program. Jenny from Harwood Fish Culture Station, Ashley from Ontario Streams, Catherine, Brian, Chris, Brooke, MB, and Adam from OFAH, Holly from EcoSpark, Mary Kate from Toronto Zoo, Lindsay from Ganaraska Conservation, Kathy from Central Lake Ontario Conservation Authority, Mary from Toronto and Region Conservation Authority, and Leah and Megan from OPG. I would also like to say a huge thanks to our lead sponsor, Ontario Power Generation, and to the Ontario Trillium Foundation for making this program financially possible. Thanks to all of the support from the management team here at OFAH, to MB for helping us host the program here at the Hunting and Fishing Heritage Center, and to Todd from maintenance who helped us with some of the feeding of the fish. Lastly, I would like to say thank you to Johnny Nene for all of the great work with the Fishy Fact segments. I was hoping that Johnny would be able to join us for the fish release, but he has moved on to a new job, this time working with birds. He did, however, leave us with one last short video. Let's hear from Johnny.
Well, 15 weeks later, and we have arrived at the end of our journey. Along the way, we've looked at a variety of unique fish species from around the world. We've looked at the world's fastest fish, the sailfish. Fish with incredibly unique ways for catching their prey, like the archer fish. We've seen potentially invasive species, like the northern snakehead, and species at risk, such as the red-side dace. The world of fish is truly diverse. One thing I really hope you guys take away from the program is how important it is to be good stewards of our land. Everything is connected. From the forests, the animals, our waterways, the sun, everything is intertwined. And we need to make sure we do our best to take care of the natural world. Thank you everybody for coming along on this journey. We'll see you next time.
Thanks again, Johnny. Let's have a look at our fish before we start collecting them. Okay, so first thing that we're gonna do is make sure that all the equipment has continued to function properly. So both of our filters are running nicely. Nice flow out of them. Lots of bubbles coming out of the aerator. And our temperature of this tank, so this is our warmer tank, is sitting at 11 degrees. And we've got nice, healthy looking fry swimming around in here. And I'm gonna give them a big feeding right now. I don't have to worry so much about food that doesn't get eaten that might impact water quality, because we're gonna be getting these fish out of here very, very shortly. And I want their bellies full when they go into the stream. Just buys them a little bit more time to go and hunt and find some natural food. So we'll see how they react if I give them some more food here. These fish can both see the food floating around or starting to sink down through the water, and they can also smell it. Okay, so for the river tank, the tank that we've been keeping cooler, I've been increasing this temperature over the last 2 weeks, and I now have it sitting at the same temperature as the other one. So it's at 11 degrees. Filter's running great. Lots of air coming out of the bubbler. And our temperature is sitting at 11 degrees. And these fish are now moving around a lot. They still have a little sliver of a yolk sac on their bellies, but that's okay. They're still ready to go out into the stream. That little bit of a yolk sac isn't going to hinder their movement, but it will also buy them a little bit of time in the stream to again go and hunt and find some natural food. So this tank is also ready to go. So let's start collecting the fish. Now I'm going to show you the equipment that I'll be using to collect the fish. So I have a container to put the rocks into. I have a bucket here to get water out of the tank, make it a little bit easier to catch the fish. I have a cooler and some ice packs that once we've got the fish collected, they're going to go in containers, in these containers here. They'll go in these containers, and then the containers will go into the cooler, so we keep them nice and cool for the car ride down to the release sites. And then I have a net for catching the fish and a towel to wipe up all the water that's going to be dripping all over the place and on my hands. So that's the equipment for collecting the fish. All right, now we'll go over the procedure of collecting them. Okay, so our first step is to shut off the equipment. Again, we've got electricity and water together. We'll move some of the stuff out of our way. Next step, so I'm going to put water from the tank into our containers. We have somewhere around 90 fish in this tank. So I'm going to put about 45 in each of these two containers. And I fill them about halfway. That way I allow lots of airspace in there as well. And as we're driving to the release sites, these are going to swash around, and the air that's in the top of these containers will get incorporated into the water in here and give oxygen for our fish. So I'll put the lids on these for now, and then I'm going to put them into the cooler to keep this water cool while we do some other steps. My next step here is I am going to remove the rocks. That way when I go to catch the fish, they're not going to be hiding down in the rocks. Making sure that I don't have fish in the rocks. Fish are a little bit more developed like this. They will move out of the way really quickly. But if we had Alvin, they could easily be just right in here with these rocks and they could get injured. So there's lots of particles in the water that you can see floating around in there now. And that's a combination of uneaten food and fish poop. So that when we're feeding fish, that shows how water quality can be impacted. here is a dead fish, and it looks like it's one that didn't eat. So this one starved to death. It just never got onto the food, unfortunately. Okay, so now I've got the rocks out of my way. I'm actually going to remove some more of the water as well, just to give a little less space for the fish to swim around and get away from my net. I should have probably done that actually before I removed the rocks. It would have been nicer for my hands, but that's okay. So I'll take this water and dump it down the sink. Take just a little bit more here. When I'm doing this, I have to be careful I don't end up accidentally scooping up some fish and dumping them out. Okay, so that's enough water out. So I'll take one of my containers now, leave the other one in there to stay cool. The ice packs are in my cooler as well. And now I'll start netting the fish. And while I do this, I count them so I can see what kind of survival rate we have. So we're at 20 now. Found one more dead fish as well. Looks like it didn't even make it out of Eildon stage. Okay, so now I've got 45 fish in here. So I'm now going to switch to the other container because I figure there's somewhere around 90 fish. So I'll do 45 in each. The lid on there. Put it in the cooler. 25 in this one so far. And I'm getting into the fish that are hard to catch. The ones that get away from the net quickly. And they're the ones that I'm the most hopeful for. They may be the ones that get away from predators. 26. Okay, so I finally was able to get them all out of there. I actually had to remove the chiller to get it out of my way because there were some really fast fish. The last few that I caught were really getting away from me a lot. And so I had to get everything out of the way that I could. And now I've got all the fish out of there and they're in their containers. So I got another 36. That's what the fish look like. So we have 36 in this container and 45 in the other. And we'll go and do our next tank. So the last tank we had 81, and that's actually pretty good. I thought there was going to be more mortality because we were doing the feeding. There typically is more mortality. So 81 is a good number to have gotten out of that tank. And we'll see how we do with this one. Same process, shutting off the equipment, getting water into my containers where I'm going to be putting the fish, about half full. And then I'll put these into the cooler. Now, next step will be to get some of the water out. Okay, so now I've got the water down a bit. I'm going to remove the rocks. This time I have to be a little bit more careful though. These fish aren't as well developed. They are moving around quite well in here, but there might be some that are slower. So I'm going to take my time doing this to get these rocks out and really make sure that I'm moving slowly in the tank and checking for fish amongst the rocks. Okay, so all my rocks are out of the way. I've also moved the chiller out of the way this time as well, just to make it easier. Okay, there's 45 in one container. Most of them are pretty good. There are some that have huge yolk sacs though, and I don't think that those ones are gonna survive. So there's 36 so far in this one. So we definitely have more in this tank. Okay, that's them all. So that's 47 in this container. We got 92 in total out of this tank. Looks like we didn't lose any after we let them out of the condo, which is great. So here we have a comparison of the fish in the two different tanks. The larger fish was in the warmer tank and the smaller fish was in the cooler tank. And again, that's to do with the metabolic rate. The rate at which these fish grew was directly influenced by the temperature of their water. The warmer the water, the quicker the fish grew. Okay, so our fish are here in the cooler. I'll just double check, make sure that all the lids are on secure, everything's good, and we're ready to go to our first release site. We will now travel to our first of 2 release sites, Balls Mill Conservation Area, located north of Cobourg, Ontario. Balls Mills Conservation Area features some woodland trails, a pond, and a healthy cold water stream. Okay, so here we are at Balls Mill Conservation Area, and we are going to be releasing half of our fish from each of the tanks. So half of the tank, the lake tank that we kept warmer, and half of the fish from the river tank that we kept a little bit cooler. So let's make our way down to the release site. So we're making our way down to the release site here, and we've come across a duck. There's a male that's over to the left there as well. These are mallard ducks. The male over there with the green head, and the female that's more drab. Looks like she might be sitting on a nest. So we're actually going to change our direction here and give them a little bit more space. Okay, so before we release our fish, we want to do just like we did in week 2, where we put the eggs into a container, into some water from the tank, so that we balance the temperatures between the water that's inside the containers here with the fish in it and the water that's inside the stream where the fish are going to go. We don't want to shock the fish. So we're going to give it a few minutes. I'm going to see what our temperature is, just out of curiosity. Okay, so right now, our temperature is sitting right about 13 degrees. So slightly warmer than we had the tanks. At 2 degrees should be fine though for the fish. And we'll just give it about 10 minutes or so where these just sit in the water. And while we'll do that, we'll talk about the habitat at this site. Why was this place chosen as one of our release sites? Well, it's got good habitat. So you can see around here, we've got lots of tree cover along the edge of the stream that's going to provide shade and keep our water from warming up. The tree roots help to hold together the banks of the stream. And the leaves and branches hanging over the stream also sometimes fall off into the water. And that's an important source of nutrients to feed the food web within the stream, as well as larger branches will provide some structural habitat for different types of animals to hide in. We've also got lots of rocks here for the fish to hide in, as well as if we pick up one of these rocks, we might find we have a few things crawling around on it. Okay, so of course these little bugs on the bottoms of these rocks are really important for these fish, because this is what these fish are going to be eating while they're here in the stream. This site is also connected to Lake Ontario via Cobourg Creek. So this is an ideal location for us to release these fish. So let's get our fish and get them into the water. Okay, so I'm going to show you the process that we do normally when we have school groups here. We would net out individual fish, and students would come to the edge of the water, and I would net a fish, they would take the net, and then they would release it, often giving it a name as well. So we'll do a couple like that. So here's this one. We'll call this one Sandy for our model in the classroom there. And I let the fish out into the water and off it goes. We'll do a few like that. And we'll call this one Chris. Here goes little Jeffy. And Cindy. Okay, so we're not going to net out all the fish. It'll be easier on the fish if we do it this way. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pour these fish out across the section of this stream where it's not too fast. And yeah, and then that'll allow them to disperse themselves amongst these rocks. And I'm also going to be making sure that I move upstream and not walk on my fish. So here they go. And that's it. Okay, so now we're going to drive to Greenwood Conservation Area in the north end of Ajax to release the second half of our fish. All right, let's go. We will now travel to our second release site, Greenwood Conservation Area at the north end of the town of Ajax, to release the rest of the fish. Greenwood Conservation Area is a nice place to hike in all seasons and also features a healthy cold water stream. All right, so here we are at our second release site. So we're at Greenwood Conservation Area just north of Ajax, and we are on Duffins Creek, and Duffins Creek flows down into Lake Ontario. And we have great habitat here again. We've got lots of gravel. In fact, this gravel looks very similar to the gravel that we had in our tanks. We have nice tree cover, giving some shade and some cooling to the water. The tree roots holding together the bank. Lots of opportunity for leaves and small twigs and stuff to fall into the water and give some nutrient. If you look downstream, you'll see some big trees have piled up there. And that's great structural habitat. There's probably some fish hiding underneath there right now, maybe some larger fish as well. So this is another great site for habitat. We're doing the same thing with our fish containers, balancing them. They've been in here for probably about 10 minutes now. And our water temperature, a little bit warmer here. Right now we're sitting at about 14 degrees. So just a little bit warmer. It's later in the day as well. So the water has warmed up a little bit. So we're ready to release these fish here at Duffins. Okay, here we go. These fish. Good luck. Good luck, everybody. that's a wrap, folks. I hope through this program that you have seen the bigger picture, that we, humans and non-humans, need a healthy and productive environment filled with clean air, clean water, and biodiversity. We are nature. Now you might think that, well, if we are nature, then isn't the destruction of habitat, the loss of species, and the loss of health of the environment caused by humans also natural? Yes, I think it is, but I'll follow that up with that our ability to observe the results of our actions, learn from our mistakes, and make better choices is also natural. We need a new global cultural model, one where the true value of nature is fully recognized and honored. One where stewardship is not just a concept or a hobby that we do once in a while, but a way of life. I hope that you will grow your curiosity about the natural world so that you can better understand your place in it, so you can better take care of it. Thank you for watching the Bring Back the Salmon Classroom Hatchery Program 2021 version. Take care, everybody.